Hello, and thank you for joining me. My name is Kristin Peirce, and I am a MindScape instructor. We have a upcoming course of MindScape online happening with the Brazil matrix and our wonderful coordinator Nirvana and our fabulous translator Ingla. And that's coming up on February 10th, 11th, and 12th. And so we had an Instagram live set up to get together and share about MindScape and answer your questions and all of that, but we've had some scheduling issues. So that's totally okay. Instead, we've decided I'm going to do a couple videos and the ladies are going to support afterwards by getting some translations hooked up for the captions. So I'm going to share a little bit today about what MindScape is, how I personally use it in my life, what some of the possibilities are for you, and even how it works. So Nirvana wanted me to start by talking about some of the humor that I use on my Instagram reels. And so my main thing with doing that is bringing some lightness and some playfulness, and even relatability to our minds and our egos and how we act, right? And how our egos respond to things and how we judge ourselves, or we don't listen to our intuition because our ego is telling us it's ridiculous, right? Or it's, telling us our dreams don't make any sense and they're impossible, right? Like there's all of these things, and it happens to all of us all the time. We have this inner dialogue that happens in our minds. We have our egos trying to keep us safe and protect us, and we have boatloads of mental programming stored in our subconscious minds. That is across the board the same for all of us. That's just how our mind works. That's how our psychology works. And so the reason that I really like to do silly, playful videos about the ego is because that lightness and that playfulness can really help us not take ourselves so seriously, not take doing our inner work so seriously. And we can also kind of gently call ourselves out on the stuff that we're doing subconsciously, in a way. And that can even spark some insights for us. So I like to be silly and playful with it, just to open up our own minds, to take a look at our own behaviors and some of the things we might be doing unconsciously that could be sabotaging ourselves, but to see it in kind of a silly way. When we lighten things up in that way, we are not as likely to be triggered, to get defensive, or to even have ego flare-ups, right? When it's light and playful and even sarcastic, it helps to kind of settle the mind down. So that's why I like to approach things that way, especially on social media, because it's silly and it's fun. The next thing I wanted to talk about is just how MindScape works. So MindScape is a 2-day seminar. We are also going to break things up over 3 days when it comes to MindScape Brazil, because we will have translation happening from English to Portuguese as well, and vice versa. So we're going to spread that out over 3 days so that we can take in all of that information and have a really great experience together. So what we do in a MindScape workshop is, first of all, we talk theory of the mind and psychology and how it all works. Then we learn a guided sequence to relax the body and the mind to get ready for meditation. Okay. Next up, I will actually lead you to create a mental workshop, mental framework, in order to be able to access your subconscious mind and your intuition. And then we utilize various tools in a fun, playful way to explore the depths of our subconscious mind. And the reason that this matters is because our subconscious is basically the storehouse of all of our mental programming and our belief systems. Okay, and so it's basically like a huge filing cabinet that stores all of our experiences and all of the judgments we have created or decided about those experiences. And then that mental programming, that subconscious filing cabinet, is what our mind takes our experiences from, and that's how we determine decision making, and essentially create our lives and our experience of life based on the information that's in our subconscious, right? So it becomes our mental programming, and then we utilize that to experience life. So the interesting thing is that our subconscious can only communicate through imagery and symbolism. So if you have experienced a guided meditation before, that's great. But MindScape takes it a step further. It is like, that's why I call it meditation on steroids, because essentially what we do is we then take that experience that we had, which is, when we're doing a meditation, it can help to connect us to our subconscious mind. Especially if we're doing it in a journey style way where we allow something to come up for us. But with MindScape, we then take that experience and we learn how to interpret the symbolism. Okay, because the subconscious can only communicate in imagery and symbolism, it is important for us to then engage our conscious mind to make sense of that experience. That's when we have the aha moments. That's when we have the transformation. That's when we have those light bulbs turn on and allow us to have more choice, more options for what we're able to choose. Because before we thought we could only pick X, Y, or Z, and all of a sudden we've opened up the whole alphabet of options, maybe even more than that. So we then learn how to interpret those experiences that we've had to unravel and update our mental programming. So by unraveling our mental programs, we're also unraveling the limits that essentially those programs create limits for us because they narrow down the options of what we believe is possible. Okay, so as we are able to question those things and unravel those certainties, those things we were so certain about before, we're actually able to expand our experience of life. So it's pretty incredible. And the other analogy that helps to explain all of this is if you think of a computer, computers need regular software updates so that they can be functioning optimally, right? Because information is changing, systems are being optimized, and those computers, they need upgrades, right? If they don't have those, then they get slow and dysfunctional over time. And so if you think of our brains in the same way, it's quite interesting because our mental programming also needs updates and upgrades. And of course it does. Like, who in their right mind would not agree with that? Like, of course we need mental upgrades. But consider how often we're not questioning the things we believe to be true, right? And so it's interesting when you can look at it in this way because it's so important for us to upgrade our mental programming so that we're not running on a Windows 95 system with all of these really old, outdated beliefs as our programming, because of course that's going to impact our user experience, right? Our experience of life. Of course it will. And so essentially with MindScape, we are performing mental upgrades to our mental software. And the changes that can happen are just phenomenal. And so I will share some of the uses of MindScape in my next video.